On today's podcast, we sit down with industry visionary Marcus Spence. Marcus shares his insights on belief and leadership in the creative process, even when facing skepticism. We discuss the risk-taking approaches of icons like Dr. Dre and Timbaland, and how artists like Eminem and Aaliyah overcame doubts to achieve stardom. Marcus also announces the launch of Spence Force Entertainment's new website and reveals how his journey in music management began. Plus, we dive into the importance of publishing rights, the role of AI in music, and the strategy behind successful corporate partnerships. You won't want to miss this episode. Insiders, are you ready?
Welcome to MUBUTV's Music Business Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage artists and music business professionals who are dedicated to having a successful career in the new music industry. Here are your hosts, Rich Ezra and Eric Knight. Welcome back, Insiders, to another episode of the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage your music career. On today's episode, we have a special guest who brings a wealth of experience and insights, Marcus Spence, the visionary behind Spence Force Entertainment. We discuss the essential role of belief and leadership in the creative process and share inspiring stories of iconic artists such as Eminem and Aaliyah who defied the odds. We also dive into the transformation of the music industry from the risk-taking approaches of Dr. Dre and Timbaland to the pioneering utilization of modern tools such as Spotify for artist success. Marcus even reveals insider tips on understanding music rights and licensing for commercial, TV, and strategies to overcome industry doubts and succeed. And there's more. Marcus announces the launch of Spence Force Entertainment's new website, SpenceForceEnt.com, where you can find courses, one-on-one opportunities, and more. From partnerships with corporate brands to the impact of AI in music, this episode is packed with valuable insights that can help you navigate and thrive in the music industry. So stay tuned, you don't want to miss it. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Hey, Insiders! Are you an aspiring musician, artist, band, or future music business professional looking to take your career to the next level? Well, look no further. At MUBUTV, we offer personalized career counseling and coaching designed specifically for folks like you.
Imagine having both of us by your side, guiding you through every step of your music journey. Our sessions are tailored to meet your unique needs, focusing on critical aspects of your music career, such as refining your songs, defining your artist story, identifying your target audience, and enhancing your social media presence, just to name a few.
Whether you're just starting out or looking to elevate your existing career, we've got you covered. Our comprehensive approach ensures you get insights on everything from live shows to branding and marketing strategies. We understand that every artist is unique. That's why our coaching is personalized just for you.
And here's the best part. We offer flexible coaching packages that fit any budget. Choose from individual sessions ranging from 30 to 90 minutes or save with our discounted 4-session packages. Experience custom sessions designed to enhance your music career with opportunities for greater savings when you choose bundled sessions. Investing in your musical journey has never been more accessible.
Imagine the clarity and direction you'll gain after just one session. The feedback on your songs, the strategies to grow your audience, and the confidence to perform live, all tailored just for you.
So why wait? Don't let uncertainty hold you back. Join us for your free 15-minute discovery call at book.mubutv.com for a transformative coaching experience that will elevate your music career. That's book.mubutv.com.
Welcome back, Insiders. Today's featured guest is industry veteran Marcus Spence. This was a really interesting conversation from a veteran and somebody who's worked with artists at the highest levels, whether it was Eminem, Timbaland, you know, one of the most successful producers, Ryan Tedder, One Republic, massive successful songwriter and hit band. And, you know, one of the things that he talked about that I thought was just absolutely crucial for our audience to hear was the whole option that, you know, failure is not an option.
Right.
And, you know, I've learned that from you about that commitment that you need. You just keep going.
Yeah.
And that has to stem from an authentic belief in yourself.
Right.
You know,
the healthy ego.
Yeah, a healthy ego. Exactly. Because unhealthy ego can set you off on a path that you'll never achieve what you want.
Right.
But I thought that was really an important one. You know, failure can be avoided with persistence and strategic planning. And he talked about that.
Right.
And I thought that that's such an important element. And I think that's important for our audience to hear as well.
Yeah, and latching on to what you're saying, one of the things I thought was interesting was perseverance through mistakes. Marcus highlighted that his biggest lessons came from remaining persistent despite setbacks and industry skepticism. And it's that whole idea of pushing forward, just, again, latching on to what you were saying, that even though, they always tell you learn from your mistakes. And, Marcus illustrated that greatly in this interview.
Yeah, exactly. What's that famous Winston Churchill quote about, one failure to the next without a loss of enthusiasm.
Right.
And that's how you learn and that's how you grow.
Yeah.
Because you will come across lots of people that do not believe in you, that do not, have any belief in you at all. I don't care if you're Madonna or U2. Doesn't make any difference. The other aspect, again, which I will always, believe is key for us, and this is our whole purpose on this show, is the education aspect. He spoke about, educating yourself about the business side if this is to be your career. It's absolutely crucial. You cannot just focus on music and have a career and think someone else or something else will do all the rest of it for you. Won't happen.
Yeah. Also, obstacles to success. Marcus encouraged artists to focus on their essential goals and ignore external influences that hold them back. And again, it's the idea of what you're talking about, focusing on the things that are going to move the needle forward for you and your career. It's such a crucial thing. And, this was a really great interview in terms of that whole embodiment of what it is to become an artist and how to succeed.
Yeah. And to what you're saying about the journey.
Right.
Because Marcus has had a journey. I mean, the journey with, working with artists like Aaliyah, working with Eminem, working with Ryan Tedder,
right.
In those early years when no one knew who he was.
Correct.
And seeing the hits come. And the hits don't always come.
Right.
And sometimes it takes years. I mean, you look at the careers of legendary people, David Bowie, who had been literally making records for 8 years, from 1964 to 72, before he broke through.
Right. Starting as a folk singer. Yeah.
Exactly. But he never, ever, ever stopped. He never stopped learning. He never stopped moving forward.
And evolving. Yeah.
And exactly, to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. That's the key. That's the absolute crucial key. You can't do that. I don't know if you can have a career today.
And with that, insiders, sit back, relax, and enjoy our featured conversation with Marcus Spence.
Marcus, welcome.
Thank you.
I always love to start these conversations off with the question, do you remember when in your life that you knew that the music business was going to be your professional career path?
It's an interesting question. Yes. So when I was a kid, a young teen, I guess you could say, growing up in Virginia Beach, I remember there was a record store called Planet Music. And, I always loved every genre of music. I listened to everybody, Natalie and Borgio. I used to watch videos, Stain back in the day, and Led Zeppelin. And I just loved the feel and how the music made me feel. So it was just inspiration. I knew it was in me. I knew that I was so inspired by what it made me feel that I was so entrenched. So yeah, that's an interesting question. I guess it just came to me. I grew up playing sports, but music was always in me.
I wanted to ask you, you started your career with renowned producer Timbaland, which, by the way, I'm such a huge fan of his. And looking back at that time, how did those initial experiences shape your understanding of the music business? And the second part of that, are there any specific lessons from that time that you still apply to today?
Yeah, I definitely, I think I have a lot of lessons I've learned, before I even entered in the music industry. My first experience is actually interesting. I'll tell y'all a story. So when I was in college, right when I graduated, I was able, growing up with them, I was able to meet Aaliyah and Genuine and Playa and Missy before Missy became Missy. So I was able to experience all these amazing artists that became mega superstars, But there was one particular incident that it was funny. A lot of people don't know this, but I used to work at this grocery store. It was called Farm Fresh in Virginia Beach, and I was a cashier. And I went to this job, and I was like, I didn't really want to be there because I was my freshman in college. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So Timbaland asked me, he was like, hey, do you want to take this trip? And I was like, how can I come up with an excuse? Like, I hate this job, but I need this money. I'm in college. And he was like, do you want to take this trip? And the first trip I took was to Detroit. Actually, it was Chicago. And I remember that was the first time I met Aaliyah. And I got a chance to go to her house to play pool with her and her brother Rashad. And, you know, the lesson I learned that was when you believe in something, you got to take risks because you never know what that result is going to turn into. You know, I learned a lot during that experience. I learned a lot. I met a lot of great people. You know, those people became my family. And it taught me the aspect of passion. I saw that their passion, and I saw her in her eyes passion. So that was one of the stories that I don't think anybody ever know because I basically came back and lost my job. They didn't believe me. And yeah, and ever since then, I was always interested into the music industry, even getting able to experience some of the great artists like Pharrell and being in Virginia Beach and Missy and Tim. And I mean, there's so many great artists that came down there. So I was able to experience it. And that was always inspiration, you know, seeing Michael Jackson come down there to work with Teddy Riley at Future Sounds in Virginia Beach. So we had so many great artists. So it just became embedded, just one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I mean, I remember all of these artists that you are speaking of. Here's the thing, you know, you were also extensively involved in managing artists as well, including Ryan Tedder and One Republic and Faith Evans and Guy Sebastian and Michael B. Jordan and others. And after your initial experiences with Timbaland and Beat Club, what were the challenges? The challenges that you faced, what were the challenges you faced in managing several artists at that time?
The challenges I faced were, how can I put it? It's one of those things where, you know, you have to learn people's personality, right? That's the first thing about being a manager. You're helping to guide somebody's career. I'm a creative mind, right? I believe myself as a visionary. You know, people have blessings in their life. I believe I'm a visionary and I have passion and I see visions in people that they might not even see in themselves. What was during that time for the management side, it was a lot of learning, a lot of mistakes, you know, a lot of risk, a lot of, you know, even One Republic. It was, the guys didn't even know what I was visualizing, but in my mind, I knew like, oh, you know what? This sounds like a great idea. Like, let me just go. I believe in you guys. So they were like, I'll give you a perfect example of a scenario with them. I didn't know what I was doing. I came from the label for Beat Club. You know, I learned from the label. I learned from some great people at Interscope. But what was beautiful about it is being in Interscope, learning in Jimmy's house. You know, he allowed us to sit down and sit into the marketing meeting. So I was able to hear when they're launching Marilyn Manson and Limp Bizkit and Eminem early on in his career. So I'm an absorber. I'm a mental absorber. So I take this information in and I try to figure out the right moment to apply that knowledge. So particularly One Republic was interesting. I started from the very beginning. I think it was around like 2003. I met Ryan and he came up to Interscope because we had an office at Interscope during that time. And he was like, I want to start a band. And he had a bunch of his friends come from a couple of buddies. I think it was a couple of guys from Denver, I believe, and some other people from the church. And we booked the first. It was like downtown in LA. It was downtown LA. That was like our first rehearsal time. And I didn't know what I was doing. You know, I was figuring it out. But I was just like, I believe in these guys. And that's what management is. When you believe, you believe. And I took a risk and I was like, we're going to figure this out. I don't know. People look at me. I come from urban, you know, working at Timbaland. But again, if you look back at my history, you know, I listen to every genre of music. So I don't put myself in a box. And the one thing I did, I started just trying different things out. I tried everything to figure out who their audience is. And so it was funny. We started, I don't know, you know, living in LA, there's a guy that does named Sean Healy. Sean Healy Presents. And Sean Healy Presents, he had a built-in audience already.
Yeah.
So
we know Sean.
So Sean, House of Blues, Troubadour, all these events, I reached out to them and I was like, let me just buy. I bought the tickets because to get on his show, you had to buy the tickets. I put it on my credit card and I gave it to the guys to give away the ticket because I'm like, just give it away. I don't even care. I just want to I believe in you guys. And I know that if we perform in front of these people, it's going to result in bigger result than us trying to force it down somebody's throat. So it worked. If we started building up a following in LA and we became this hot band in LA, and then I called one of my other buddies up and I was like, hey, I got this band. I don't know we figured this out. And we ended up in Chicago Mob Fest. And that was a big rock festival. And we performed at this is a very interesting venue that we performed at. But those were all experiences that helped shape up. And then eventually we got to the point where we started building up a track record, and I got APA agency on board, and they kept supporting us, and they started booking all our shows. And then all of a sudden everything just started turning around. But the reason I'm telling you this is as a manager, you learn. There is no roadmap. Everybody I've worked with, even working with Michael B. Jordan, I didn't know anything about the acting world. I had 15 actors at one point in my career. Some of them going and doing great things. One of my clients, Michelle Joy Phelps, she's one of the biggest boxing commentators out there. Guy Sebastian, I worked with him. One of my good friends was an agent. At the time, I was a bit at Paradigm, and she connected me with the manager, and I started handling him in the U.S. and in Europe. And I saw a vision, because that was the time because I've been blessed to meet a lot of great artists that now they're superstars. That's why, that's the most amazing thing about it. It's a real blessing. But I was able to saw a vision when Bruno Mars was coming out. I was like, Guy Sebastian, we can integrate him into the U.S. and we find the right edge and collaboration. So with everybody I've worked with, I always see a vision. And it's a vision in any brand when you really identify it. And that's kind of how I've ever looked at everything I've done in the entertainment space. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's a project, a music artist, or a brand. It doesn't matter. You see that vision, that roadmap in your mind.
Marcus, and let me ask you just a sub-question to what you're saying. During your formative years beginning in artist management, did you have a team assembled with you during all these acts that you were developing, or was it just you alone?
You know what? I had one business partner, but most of those artists, I did it myself.
Yeah.
Majority of the time, I did it myself, to be honest with you. It's no ego, but
no. I'm just curious because I'm seeing the body of work with all the artists, and I'm like, how do you juggle this as one human being to do all this? It must have been, quite challenging.
Oh, crazy land. Oh, no. It was, imagine even running Mosley Music Group and trying to have a management company at the same time and trying to.
Oh, I know.
And trying to sit down and represent actors and be like, you're not on camera. We got to get you on tape. We have to do this.
Right.
And try to direct them and then go in and be like, okay, now we're going to launch Shock Value 2. And then, like Carrie Hilson's project and One Republic, it's my brain is going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. But, it's a true blessing. Sometimes I forget what that blessing is, but it's a true blessing. Trust me, it's not an easy thing. Sometimes your brain can go overload.
Oh, I definitely know. Yeah. I definitely know that feeling. Let me ask you, Marcus, you've worked with both emerging and established talent, like you were just referring to initially with One Republic when, they were pretty much unknown. Did you adjust your management style with dealing with different artists and who they were at different stages of their careers?
Yeah, absolutely. And because I believe it's getting to know people's personality.
Yeah.
That's what it is, right? I want to make sure. Listen, the one thing I would say is, and I try to preach this to every artist, just come in humble, because I've met so many great artists. Like I remember meeting Bono, Chris Cornell, late Chris Cornell was like, even Soundgarden, right? I look at Chris Cornell, massive Soundgarden. I was blessed to sign him and to Mosley. And it was an interesting conversation. I had it with, it was funny. One of my buddies was his, and the reason why I'm telling you this story is a reason, because why I respect him so much, because he's a superstar. He's the iconic. He's the leader of grunge rock from the Seattle scene. Like he was a pioneer and he was humble. So I always look at people and artists, no matter what level just be humble, be yourself. Be who you are before you became that, before all the success came. And I always try to preach that to people because I can see a vision in people. And I can tell them, I know you're going to go there. I can give you the roadmap. I can feel it. When I feel it, and I believe it. It's going. There is no angle that you can't get to, because if we're not going to the moon, and I don't think I got a rocket go to the moon, even though Elon Musk can do it, you can figure it out. It's not. It's music. It's industry. It's intellectual property. It's how you create those revenue streams and opportunities with that intellectual property that you're creating, that art piece you're creating, that Picasso painting that you're creating. It's how you take that to the magnitude to figure out which way to go with it. It might not work this way, but maybe there's an audience over here for it. So now you take that audience and then you grow from that audience.
It's so interesting as I'm listening to you, I'm realizing that, so much of your philosophy and your consciousness around this has to do without setting limitations on yourself.
There you go.
Yeah, just going after Chris Cornell, signing him to Mosley, making it work because you don't see any sort of, limit. You don't see a limit on that. I only have to do that. I wanted to ask you, you brought up Mosley a few times now, and as you were the president of the Mosley Music Group, which was a joint venture with Interscope. And I'm curious, what did you find were your biggest challenges in that relationship between, running Mosley and Interscope? What were the things that you had to deal with?
You know what? I think the biggest challenge is at that moment, the beautiful part. I'll tell you the beautiful thing about our relationship at that moment. So, and I'm going to have to backtrack a little bit to tell you why. So in 2001 to 2004, we had a label with Interscope called B Club Records.
Right.
Where we had Bubba Sparks.
Right.
So I was right out of college. But what people don't know is I never really had a mentor. I never had nobody tell me anything. It was funny. The time was like I was either going to earn an Electra with Jay Brown, who's a Rock Nation, and then try to learn to run the label at the same time, trying to figure out how I didn't know anything. I've worked with Tim, but it's different when you learn from creative on the business side. So what I ended up doing, what I ended up doing is, and it's funny, I'm telling this now, but I sat down with every department head. Every department head I befriended at the label. I learned the ins and outs of how Interscope ran. I learned exactly, and what I did was I heard other projects, what their faults were, what went wrong. It gave me more information, ideas, so that I knew when we did Mosley Music Group, what we could do, how we could be successful, so we did not fail. That makes sense.
No, that makes total sense.
It's a brilliant strategy.
Yeah, you went in and you learned the company. You got the company on your side, and you did what?
Learn from their mistakes.
Yeah.
Learn from the mistakes that happen, and applied that to your own, strategy.
Yep.
But you also got all of the department heads knowing who you were, which I think is brilliant.
And absolutely. So I knew, okay, let's look at, for example, right? Okay, let's look at an example like Nelly Furtado.
Yeah.
That was that first artist off our label. People don't understand. She was already signed to Interscope.
Right.
Jimmy's a genius. What Jimmy did was he put Nelly Furtado on our label, but we also had the support of Geffen. So we have two marketing machines. We bring the creative, they bring the marketing.
Yeah.
It works hand in hand together. So the way I looked at it, whenever we did a joint venture with anybody, who do they have on the roster? Who do they have on the roster that we can go back and help reinvent? Because they already have an audience and to develop that brand. We're just adding a touch to it, the story to it, and making that more of an event situation, right? And that event, because the whole collaboration is going to help both the artists and it's going to help both our labels. So that was a lot of tactics as well. So that's why we attacked Chris Cornell. So I was like, who else do they have on the label? It was funny. There was a band that I put on Shock Value 1 called She Wants Revenge. They were signed to Limp Bizkit, and I was like, I wanted to put them on Mosley because I was like, I wanted to. People don't even understand the vision I had in my head, and not Timbaland's vision, but my vision was I wanted to create a label that was multi-genre. I never wanted to be an urban label. I wanted to break the mold of what people's perception are and why you have to do it one way. And my goal was like, I want everything. I want One Republic. I want other bands. We had another band we were signing. I wanted it to be pop. I wanted it to be, there was a band out of Denmark called Nephew. They were the biggest Scandinavian band. They did Danish, half English. I was working on a deal to sign them to Mosley because I love the international approach. Because if something doesn't work in the U.S., you can always go to a country and start a narrative there and then come back to the U.S.
We were speaking to Fatima Mumba.
From
Sync.
My former colleague.
Yeah, exactly. And he was, talking about how, his focus is, so much on African artists today and keeping up with that market. And, as you know, Marcus, it's so much of the music scene. If you look at the music scene from a worldwide perspective, so much of it is international today. It's, it's only 35% of the worldwide music market is in the U.S. now. 65% is outside, and all of these international territories are coming up. So
you were the head of the curve.
Yeah, you were way ahead of the curve. That seems
great.
It
was amazing. Even during the B Club day, it was like we had an artist. We remember Dido, right? You remember Dido, right?
Sure.
Of course.
Okay.
Huge.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we had an artist named during the B Club. It was funny. This is going back. So during 2002, I was like, I didn't know about politics. I was like, I don't care. I love every music. So there was a band signed to Maverick, Madonna's label. They reminded me of Stain. They was on Elektra. I wanted to sign them. We ended up doing a showcase for them. And then I realized all the politics. I was like, I don't care. I still want to sign them. But then we ended up signing this artist named Shelby Norman. Now, Shelby Norman was literally Dido around the same time when Dido was coming out with the whole collaboration with Eminem. Yep. So we had a different sound. And I don't know, you remember how music was back then, right? You know how pop music was considered pop music. It started transcending where you add the urban beats to it.
Right.
Then that became more popular music. But back then it was very clean, right? It was like you couldn't do it. If it didn't sound like a Mariah Carey song.
Right, it was very straight ahead pop. Yeah,
very segmented. Yeah.
Exactly. So we had Shelby Norman, and Tim added his beats to it, so it was a different sound. But it was funny. I used to go to the international department all the time on the 5th floor. I sat up there every day. It was a gentleman named Don Robinson. I sat in his office to pick his brain. He was the product manager marketing for Eminem. I picked his brain all the time, and I was like pitching. I was always just like playing our music, and I was like, "Here's the artist Shelby Norman. I know she could be great." And this is for Martin Tristamon came over there. I was like, "I know she could be great," and it was interesting. So we ended up talking and brainstorming. And at the time, he was like, I got French, Universal France in town. And even then, I was like, we can break her in France, build a story up, then come back to the U.S.
Right.
That was literally my mind then. And if something happened for political sense, but I was like, if we do that, now it's a bigger story. Because now you got Universal France, and then once you get Universal France, you hit the rest of the Europe. Now you're building a whole narrative before you come back to the U.S., and now it's done in a whole different way outside the box.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Atlantic took that approach about, with the period you're talking about, maybe 8 years earlier with an artist that they had called Tori Amos. They couldn't, they did an album on her which went nowhere, and the second album, which is the one that broke her through, they did exactly what you were suggesting. They did it out of England. They built it up there. They put her for performances. She got a lot of press, and they brought that whole narrative back to the album was called Little Earthquakes, and it was a seminal album that was brilliant, and that strategy that you're talking about totally worked. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's why I say it is there is no reason why art should not work. There's too many places to expose art. Problem is that sometimes our business, they make it one way, and it's not one way. It's not. You know, like
I agree.
There's artists you can go on YouTube and be the biggest YouTuber. Like I've done rights management, broker deals. The income that's coming up on YouTube, that pays on the master side, the publishing side. If you're creative.
Yeah, I think that's a testament to you not really knowing what you were doing and just kind of navigating as you were going through things. I look at artists like Timbaland, Missy Elliott, they were very future based, and so I think that kind of rubbed off on you in a lot of ways, because a lot of the strategies and things that you're talking about are things now that are being like much more commonplace now that weren't happening back in that time.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Marcus, when you and Timbaland were signing acts to the label beyond their talent, What were the most important non-creative factors you considered when signing new artists?
You know, for me, it personally, it's the character. I really believe in the character. I'm not going to sit here and say that every artist that we saw eye to eye on. You know, there were some artists that I was like, I would meet them and I would watch their energy shift, and I would watch them change, and I was like, they're going to be a monster. And the problem is when somebody's a monster, it doesn't connect with the music because you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And when you do it for the wrong reasons, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But I never wanted that energy within our company because it should be a family. We're building up an empire together. We're doing it for the art. Because the art, if you do it for the right reason, again, if you do this for the right reason, I get it. When you become you have to look at Katy Perry. Katy Perry got dropped from how many labels? She did a Christian project.
Yeah.
Exactly. Linkin Park. I remember all these stories. I mean, I remember all these stories. That's why artists should never quit. Everybody has gone through trials and tribulation to get to the top. You know, 50 Cent was signed to Columbia before. I remember when they showcased him around the office. He used to come up to Interscope. So why I'm saying this is like, you know, I really wanted to look at every artist because, again, I'm not looking at an artist for, all right, we're just doing a single. No, I'm like, we want to do something that is a legacy.
Yeah.
20 years, not just for the moment. There's people that come in here for the moment. They come in here for the cash grab, right? I don't know if Picasso's going in there trying to do a cash grab when he's selling his paintings.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And when you're doing that mentality, you lose. You win, but you lose. You know, that's what streaming has came in and caused people to give them easy access because you're just churning in money, but it doesn't build brands.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And the thing that I think is so important, you know, we ask this question to a lot of our guests that deal with, you know, direct one-on-one with talent from an A&R perspective or a label perspective or management. And the reason is because as you're speaking, Marcus, it's the thing that I think is so important for our audience to understand is that this is a conversation and these are thoughts and ideas that often are not, they are not articulated. Often people think it's just about their talent. And what you're talking about is character. What you're talking about are the things that aren't necessarily, you know, things you can hear on a tape or on a CD or, you know, whatever, that it's beyond that there's many, many aspects, often non-creative ones, that help make somebody successful. Drive, character, etc.
I'll give you a perfect example. I'm going to give you a perfect example. So when a sports team signs an athlete, how much do they research the athlete? Their family, their friends, their coaches. It's the same thing as artists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're making money together, right?
Yeah, they're A&Ring for those guys. Yeah, exactly.
It's the same, and this is what the digital age has stopped. I'm old school. I want to know who I'm going to bed with.
Yeah.
I want to know exactly because you could go crazy. You give somebody $1 million and then they don't deliver anything.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, no,
You know?
precisely. You're right. That's absolutely true. I want to shift gears here to another aspect of your career, which is that you've also worked in music publishing with your joint venture, Bluestone. Now, publishing is an entirely different business than records or management. And just curious for our audience, what did that experience teach you?
It taught me the understanding of copyright and how the life of a copyright never ends. And how you can take something that has been sitting around for years and you can create, I'm going to use the terminology, derivatives, which means basically you're going in there and you're reproducing something or you're changing something and something is already out there and then you're making it better or you're making it an alternative for somebody's ears to hear. And then that song becomes bigger than the one that you originally did. And then now money that you made now you're making money for both both songs at the same time because now you're creating a alternative version. That's what publishing taught. So it taught me that nothing dies. Copyrights, the life of a copyright. That's why people do these broker deals or they sell their publishing or their masters because it's life of copyright because it never dies. So you know what I did when I worked at Olay, which is now Anthem Entertainment, you know, my brother and I, we handled the LA Creative. So we had to work with MGM catalog. We had to look at Sony Pictures catalog. We had the Red One catalog. So the job of us was kind of go in there and go in there and generate more revenue off the catalog. Find something in there. Find a placement. Beyond just the placement, get creative. It could be a TV opportunity. It could be a gaming. During that time, one of the biggest campaigns that I was a part of, and Olay at the time, I call them Anthem, but they had Elvis Presley cuts and Can't Help Falling in Love. Now, Can't Help Falling in Love became a massive Wrigley's campaign for Haley Reinhart, right? She been back and you can't get the publishing because it's Elvis Presley estate, but we created a whole new master. And that master became massive. You know, I believe she appeared at all these ad events, and you know, it was every label wanted to sign her off of that. So we met with Republic, we met with Epic Records, we met with Capitol. Everybody wanted to sign her because they saw how the brand and her song transcended. So that's the value of publishing and what I learned.
Yeah, you know, we asked that question because we think it is so important that new artists today really have an understanding of publishing and have an understanding of the value of songs and copyright. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, you said a key phrase when you started talking about this. You said, because, you know, a copyright is forever. It's, you know, it's literally as long as you live plus 75 years, 70 years after you die. So, yeah, it's very interesting. And, you know, also, as you were speaking, Marcus, I was realizing one of your, you know, previous clients, Ryan Tedder, has made an enormously successful career writing songs, not for One Republic, which he's done dozens of, but writing songs for other people, Halo for Beyonce, and countless other hits for other artists.
I mean, and that's when that's the whole thing. I managed Ryan and the band.
Yeah, exactly.
So we actually did some interesting. Actually, I had him during back then. I think we had done some remixes for Tattoo when Tattoo first came out. You remember the band Tattoo from the Russian Girls?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So we had done. You know, I was always like, okay, if we do this, it can help your band. It's everything kind of coincides. And at the time we came out with a whole new name, Alias, because we were trying to separate everything. Because we were doing some stuff on the pop and the urban, but as you can see, music transcends now. It's not even about genre anymore.
Yes, exactly.
Definitely. It's a great segue to the next question. You know, what are some of the most common misconceptions that artists have about publishing deals, and how do you educate them to ensure that they make an informed decision about their rights? Yeah,
I believe the misconception is that they're giving away everything to everybody, and they don't understand where the revenue is. They don't understand the value of it. They're looking at, like, I have an advance. That's what most artists do. They're like, I got my advance, I got my money, but they don't know the amount of revenue they can make. They don't understand the different societies that these records the revenue can be created from an international and a domestic side. And they don't understand, like, your song getting synced in a TV show can recoup your whole deal. At the same time, recoup your whole deal, but then help drive that revenue on the master side, so then you're making money on that side at the same time. So that's what they don't understand. It's like, publishing is massive. I mean, that's why people have publishing companies, because it's endless revenue streams. Endless revenue streams. I mean, from the creative side, it becomes a creative vehicle for licensing your music, but that revenue is like, the publishing is like endless. That's why Michael Jackson bought the Beatles catalog.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Hey, Insiders, we hope that you've been enjoying our featured interview. Stay tuned because we've got so much more value coming your way. But before we dive back in, a word from our sponsor.
Hey, Eric, as an artist, what do you find are the most challenging aspects to a music career, especially when you're starting out?
Well, I think one of the first things is just trying to get the direction of who you are as an artist, where you want to go, where you want to be. And, you know, we've talked about it on the show a lot. Who is your target audience? Who you are? What do you stand for? What do you believe in? What do you think would resonate with an audience? And so those are some of the things that I would feel being a new artist. Obviously, what I know now is different because I know these things. But for people that are out there, like our audience, that don't have necessarily any direction to go, would be the first things that I would start off with.
And having the songs that
Absolutely.
incorporate those elements that you're speaking of into it. That's so important today.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why we started MUBUTV and why we started this new consulting service that we're offering to all of our insiders out there, because that is another one of the big things. I mean, that is the big thing, is like having the great songs. That's what it really starts off. Our friend Don Grierson always said, it always starts with a great song. So that's probably, besides putting together what your audience and what your target audience is the single most important thing. Where are your songs at currently today? Are you collaborating with people? Are you trying to go out to networking events where you can connect with other songwriters and stuff like that? So
yeah, and what are your strengths?
Exactly.
You know, are you a strong lyric writer? Are you a strong melody writer? Are you a strong musician, a player?
Right.
You know, and it's really important to get really strong clarity on those issues before proceeding.
I totally agree, Rich. And, you know, with our consulting services, we offer a myriad of different packages and we've made it super affordable for everybody. So, you know, if you guys are interested out there in connecting with us on a coaching call, you can visit book.mubutv.com and start off with a free 15-minute discovery call.
Well, yeah, absolutely. There we start with an initial 15-minute call where we can get a sense of who you are, what are the issues that you specifically have, right, and want to work on.
Exactly.
And we can go from there. Absolutely.
Yeah, and we tailor everything to your needs. It's not like a cookie cutter thing. We kind of really want to get to know who you are as an artist, where you at today, what's the snapshot of you as an artist today, and then start trying to craft something that's tailor-made for you. So again, if you're interested, visit us at book.mubutv.com for your 15-minute discovery call.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, most people don't realize how much money there is on the back end. They just look at the short-sighted thing of the advance and not realize the ramifications of what that means for the future. Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. You know, I do broker deals, you know, catalog deals on the publishing. So let's just say, I'll give you an example. You know, I'm giving some fruits out to everybody, but you know, let's just say, I'm bringing in $30,000. Let's say I'm bringing in $100,000 a year on publishing royalties, and that's because my music was licensed in this TV show. I got this game that came out, but it's consistent revenue. It keeps coming in. They keep doing my renewals. It keeps coming in. It's coming in for like 3 or 4 years. All right. So now I come in and I'm bringing in. I brought in like $400,000. Right. All right. So then I say, you know what? I need to go I'm having a strong time, having this crazy divorce or whatever's happening bad in my life. Well, guess what? That revenue you created each year, now I go find a buyer for you. Now this buyer says, okay, this is strong numbers then. You brought $100,000 each year. How about I give you an X multiple on that? And then how about I take that X multiple, how about I take you years worth of that revenue? So now that $100,000 that you were making, which you already have in your pocket, now you're getting $800,000 in your pocket, right? And let's say, all right, you know what? I want to take this $800,000. All right, I'm going to pocket this. And let's just say, you know, I go invest it. You pay your capital gain. I go invest it or whatever else. And let's just say, you know what? But I want to structure that $800,000 is not fully my catalog. I'm only going to sell 70% of it. Or I'm going to sell a piece of that. I'm only going to base it on the copyrights that I want to sell out of that catalog. That equals up to the $100,000. Now I still own my other copyrights.
Right.
I can segment those out. Now I'm just selling $800,000. Now you're just flipping the revenue you already brought in. That's what publishing is.
Yeah, it's very, very, very valuable. And, you know, as you were speaking, I'm realizing that, you know, a lot of other income sources like master licensing, it depends on publishing. You can't license a master unless you can license the publishing underneath in that master. I mean,
it's master and publishing. They go hand in hand. Like when you're licensed something in a commercial TV show, they had to clear both sides.
That's right. That's right. And that's where the real value comes in.
Yeah.
You know, Marcus, I want to ask you something, and we've kind of touched on this, but this goes a little deeper into it. In previous interviews, you've emphasized how important it was for you to learn every area of the business. And I remember once you said, this taught me to watch a project so that I'm not blind to anything.
Yep.
And I'm curious, from your perspective, for artists who are building music careers today, how important is it for them to be educated about their chosen career path?
I think it's very educated. I think it's very important to be educated because, again, it's figuring out what makes sense, what's going to identify with your brand. right? I think it's very, very important to understand the business side. I think if you're not educated, it's like I'm going into a store and I'm gonna start this store, but I don't know anything about this store. That's what being an artist is. So you want people to go buy something that you created, but you don't know how it's even operating to make people go buy. You don't know where you're getting your money at. You don't know anything. So you have to know everything. You need to know everything. It's like you're the CEO. You're an artist. You are the CEO, and that's why artists when they get screwed over, it's because they don't know anything. It's like, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. So I try to educate people. I believe that, like, if I'm not trying to be sneaky, and I'm not a person like that, and I'm just being transparent, and I believe the value I can bring somebody, then why would I undermine them?
You know, it's our motto here on this show, you know, to educate, empower, and engage your career. I've been in this game for 47 years, and I believe that artists need to be educated more today than at any other time because of, like, what you're saying. Today, you know, all those systems that existed, if you were really talented or really could write great songs or were a great performer, all those systems are gone. They don't exist today the way they once did 25 years ago. They don't. You know,
all the information is there to be taken.
Exactly. It's
applied.
there. But you got to learn. You got to be willing to learn it.
Right.
It's there. You don't have to leave your house. It's right
Just
there. But you got to learn. Yeah.
Open your mind because it's going to help you, because when you're creating music, you can think, you know what? If it doesn't work here, maybe I can do this. It gives you, now you're taking what I'm thinking and you're doing the same thing for yourself.
You know, Marcus, looking back at your career, what have your biggest mistakes taught you?
Oh, well, I mean, that's a lot. I mean, I think my biggest mistakes are all the mistakes that taught me perseverance, never quitting. And people don't understand how many times I've heard, this isn't going to work, that ain't going to work, this person's not a superstar. There's things that have happened, like, that people don't even imagine. Like, you would be surprised. I won't put all your names out, but you would be surprised. And I just was like, no, I believe. I believe. And when you have faith and you believe and you remember, God gave you a mind. Human can tell you what you can't do, but your mind, God, can push you through that. And you can figure out a way, you know, and that's the one thing I've done. I've had a lot of obstacles. I can't even count, you know, had so many people say this isn't going to work, that ain't going to work. Even not going to details, but even Shock Value 1, they were Timbaland's first album. They were like, this isn't going to work. I don't know. This is a producer-driven album and all these features, and this is not going to work. I was like, okay, all right, y'all not going to see it. I'm going to show y'all. And that's what I did. I figured it out a way. I was like, all right, let me get outside the box. Let me go, you know, when I went to sit down with McDonald's, you know, they were like, okay, we're going to run this commercial for The Way You Are. We're just going to run an urban campaign. And at the time, I'm like, this is how much my mind thinks. I was like, wait a minute. So we're going to rhythmic and pop radio. I'm doing all these international versions. And y'all want to run an urban campaign or urban advertising? That's not going to cross market and brand. That's not going to help us. That's not going to help the song. And it's going to be a huge disconnect.
Right.
So I went to them and I said, if y'all do that, I'm going to do a rock mix. I'm going to do a dance mix. Yeah. I'm going to do every other genre just to show to y'all that's a mistake. And so we ended up, God willing, thank God, they made the media buy more general market. And that's what people don't understand. There's a difference. You have to understand the demographic when you're being an artist, even the brand. And we ended up changing the campaign. And that advertiser campaign became that executive became executive of the year just based off of this campaign. Because of the success, because it helped drive the burger sales up. And those are the simple things that so you have to know the little tidbits. Not get caught up, but look at the little tidbits of things why things can happen and what you need to do to move the needle to make people see the vision. Because sometimes if you don't show the vision, everything can implode.
Yeah, and you saw the vision there where, you know, I mean, that goes
back to...
They
had tunnel vision. They had tunnel vision with it being an urban campaign, and you opened their mind to being multi-market and multi-general which is great. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask you this question. We've been asking all of our guests who have worked with, artists as you have. And the question is, having worked with so many artists and acts in so many aspects of this business throughout your career, what do you feel holds artists back from success in their careers?
I believe not having the right people around. And I believe that artists sometimes, I always get a notion, you're your own worst enemy. It's human. You're your own worst enemy because you want to do what you love to do, but you allow all the outside noise. That's why I always tell people, like, block out the white noise. Block out the white noise. Because if you don't focus and, like, do you think that Elvis Presley was getting a bunch of opinions? Do you think Little Richard was getting a bunch of opinions? No, they're pioneers of music. And when you want to go to the next level, because I always try to work with people that I know they're going to go to the next level. Because you can go out there and you can put out songs and make a career, but I believe my gift and my passion is to take people to that next level. And so to go to the next level, you have to block it out. And you can't be your own worst enemy. You have to listen and be like, I'm a person, I believe in collaboration. I believe that you collaborate with people. You show me your picture. Let me help paint your picture with you. Let me help put that little bit of color, and we see eye to eye on that color, rather than me just saying, go do this, go do that. That's why all these companies out here, these marketing companies, they get vanilla. And that's why you see the industry is getting hurt right now, because they're not bringing any superstars.
Yeah, exactly. You as you were speaking about that story and you were speaking about, not having faith in their own judgment, going to this one and going to that one. When I worked for Clive Davis, he tells an incredible story, and he told it on the interview that we did with him a couple months back. He has this great story about that very point you just made, which is fascinating. He said in the early 70s, when John Lennon had sort of gone into retirement, because he didn't do anything from 75 to 80. He was in a restaurant near his home. Clive was in a restaurant with a business associate. It's like a coffee shop right near his house. And the business associate says to him in the middle of of their meal, "Don't turn around now, Clive, but sitting behind you is John Lennon and Yoko Ono, who lived in the neighborhood." And of course, no one had seen John Lennon in like 2 or 3 years. So they get up and leave, and they go to, Lennon's table and introduce themselves and talk and so on and so forth. And Clive asks him this question. He says, so John, are you keeping up with today's music when you record? Are you going to, keep up with what's going on in today's music business? And John Lennon turns to him and says, No, I'm not. And Clive says, you have no interest in learning what's happening now, and so you can keep contemporary? And he says, no, not really at all. He says, let me ask you something, Clive. He says, do you think Picasso went to the galleries before he started a painting?
Yeah, it's such a great story.
It's such a great story, and Clive has never, ever forgotten that. And he says, there is something to be said for artists like that. And when you were speaking about that story, Marcus, it reminded me of that great story that Clive told. So I just had to share that with you.
That is so... I'm happy somebody else thinks like me.
Yeah. Well, it's true. Yeah. You're like, the artist is painting the sketch and the people around them are putting the color in. And that's where I think you come in.
Yeah.
You were speaking about color, and I think it's such a beautiful way to put that.
Yeah. It's so true. Hearing that story, it's actually very true. It's like, this is why, because of data and technology and all this stuff, it's become so analytical. It's not a feeling anymore.
Right.
And you got to get to the feeling. And that's why it's like a bunch of these artists, but there's no identity. It's an identity crisis right now.
Right.
I can't even keep up. You can't even keep up. But the one thing about it is that once you have your foundation in everything in life, right? Everything in life, you get a foundation. I don't have to be every day up in a label or doing this and doing that to still know what it takes to get to that, to make somebody to the next level, because it all comes in you. And, with new technologies is how you have to do it. I would say, even with new technology, like I was one of the first people to get on Spotify. And I'm talking about like even before Spotify went to the very, very beginning.
Right.
Like 20 people on Spotify. And I was like, and I didn't even understand what it was. I knew what it was, but I didn't know what it was. So the reason I'm saying is like, even with technology, you can lose your cool factor because tech is about money, but you have to figure out a way to make it about you and how to make it innovative because you can lose yourself into the data too.
I agree. You know, Marcus, you've got a brand new venture called Spence Force Entertainment. Tell us what it is and what inspired you to form it.
So I got inspired last year. I got to the point where I consult here and there and I do deals here and there for artists and clients. But I got to a point where I wanted to give back. I want to give back this knowledge, you know, like me having a conversation with you guys, you know, sometimes people don't know. So I was just like, let me just build something out that gives back, that teaches the fundamentals of business and gives them the secret sauce, not just telling them what people want to hear. No, I want to tell you the secret sauce. I want to give you customized secret sauce so you know what it takes. And the reason why I'm saying that because I gave you an example of how I started a beat club, right? And how I started in B Club is I sat with every executive and learned, right? I sat with every department head. Why am I not giving the same information to artists and people? So that's what Spence Force is. We're going to create coaching classes. I'm going to do seminars. I'm going to give people the secret sauce. I'm going to do one-on-one, but also I'm going to provide marketing. If you want to take my strategies, that's also a service that's going to be there. But ultimately, I want to turn people into superstars. If you want to be a superstar, that's what I want to build. But I want to give you the fundamentals of how to become that.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And you know, you've also worked in another area, and you've touched on it a few times in this conversation, and I want to ask you a question about it. You know, having worked with major global brands such as the WWE or McDonald's or Pepsi and others, what are the most important lessons you learned about building partnerships between entertainment and corporate entities?
It's actually interesting. You know, it's not as easy as people think.
Okay, yeah. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's not as easy. You know, there was actually, not to talk bad about anybody, but it was an interesting situation that happened even when we were supposed to perform, and we were at the peak of our career. Timbaland was, I think, and you know, we were supposed to perform at WrestleMania, and it was just funny. We were just sitting there, and this is an interesting story, but we was at WrestleMania and we get on a conference call with WWE and their team and they're like, all right, yeah, we want to do this, but we don't know, you know, because you get these calls sometimes and you get your mind and like, we're going to be doing we're going to be performing and he's going to be doing an appearance. So I'm just trying to work out logistics. And then the call goes somewhere different. And you're like, wait a minute, I thought we were doing this. What just happened?
Yeah.
So I'm like, so I get on a call and I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And one of the executives hit me on the side because what ended up happening, not everybody on the other side, WWE side, believed that this is going to work in their demographic, that he was going to transcend because, you know, they know their numbers, they know their audience. So what ended up happening, what was amazing, you know, how things work, I ended up getting with one of the executives and we went to a coffee shop in Santa Monica. And we sat down and she was like, let me figure out how to work it from my side and you figure out how to work it from your side. And I had to work it from the Interscope side and then she worked it from the WWE side. And what ended up happening, we came up with a whole content strategy on a napkin of how to integrate the Diva Girls, taking one of Timbaland's songs that's more rock centric, we created a skit. So each week we entered him into the demographic, right? Performing, we had him show up at Dayton, Ohio, one of their Monday Night Raw shows, and having them do a skit and fight each week because WWE's audience is a lot general market, it's middle America. So we integrated each week, and then the Diva Girls would fight each week to be in the video, and it was more of a natural thing. And then the music video premiered on WWE.com. So now it becomes a whole story. So now that became what we originally wanted to do, performing at WrestleMania, became more of a value add piece that actually helped from a long-term standpoint from a branding standpoint.
Yeah, and got into a market and into a place and a level of exposure that a normal music video would never have gotten into.
Exactly. So that's why partnerships can turn, they can start one way and then go another way.
Keeping with that line of thought, how do you ensure that these partnerships are mutually beneficial while staying true to the culture and values of the artists and brands involved?
I believe that it's very important to the conversations and understanding both people. So you have to understand, because brands are going to have it one way, right? They're going to be like, we want to do it. This is what we're used to. Every partnership that we've done, I've always thought outside the box and convinced people in another way. Like, it doesn't matter if it was ABC or Kid Robot. I've always came to them and showed them a vision. And I believe that you have to have a vision. I believe that if you're going to do a partnership, you can't just say, I want to do a partnership with a brand and not have a vision on how you're going to help bring a different audience and a different demographic to their brand in a cool way, because that's what they're coming to you for. So every time when you're going, you have to have a vision and you look at their brand and be like, I believe I can bring this to you. I believe this is the value I can bring. That's what they're looking for. They're not looking for you to, they have the people that work for them like, hey, this could be a good collaboration. But if you really want to do a real partnership, it has to be, I bring this value, and I believe our partnership is going to result in value add for both parties by us doing this.
Yeah, and you have to see not only, have a vision, but you also have to see what the partner can bring to this too. It's not a one-way street.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Precisely. Yep. Marcus, I want to sort of go one step ahead on this conversation with regards to what we're talking about, and that is, given your extensive experience in marketing, growth, and brand strategy, how do you see emerging technologies such as AI and machine learning transforming how artists and entertainment brands, engage with audiences in the future?
I think it's a good thing. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's good and bad because it can get people lazy. I believe that, for example, I believe AI helps from a time consumption standpoint, especially on the content side. I believe that it helps generate the content, and if you generate more content and you understand the behavior of people, and now you're creating content for the behavior of people, but it's the messaging, the information that you're providing to the AI, and you're telling a story. That's how you utilize it. It's how you use. As I would say, the world's going to go to iRobot stage too. But how you're directing it. Because you can't, it's the same thing as it's going back to the artistry, right? If you don't know how to run your business, how are you going to run the business? It's the same thing with technology.
Yeah.
How are you using it?
Yeah.
How are you telling?
You're only as good as the prompt that you're feeding it.
Exactly. So you can't expect it to know anything unless you're telling it. If you don't tell it what to do, you can't expect it to tell you what to do when it's looking for you to get the information.
Right.
Very much so. And yet we're seeing so much of that in marketing, in the thing about AI is that it's not just about one industry or about one aspect. It affects so many aspects of our lives, medically,
everything, scientifically,
marketing, culturally. I mean, it's fascinating. It's a really interesting, but I'm right with you with that. I think that it's a tool. It's not a takeover.
It's a tool. It's like if I'm building something out and I don't want to sit there and have to use my brain power, right? And I'm like, hey, can you come up with this? And it's speaking my language and I'm telling it. You have to tell the AI technology. You have to tell ChatGPT, hey, simplify. Hey, this is too complex. Hey, do the wording like that. It still takes your mind to tell it, right? You're still the boss.
Marcus, throughout your life, have there been any books or films that you have seen or read that you have found to be particularly inspiring that you can share with the audience?
Yes. There was a book that really inspired me. There's one book that really, really, really inspired me. Can't Hurt Me. Mm-hmm. I think it was David Grogan, in particular, because the reason why it inspired me is perseverance through all the obstacles, through all the people, all the naysayers, through all the people that may have given up on you, maybe family, friends, and looked at you because you want to do something different. That's one of the books that really, I always, even if I'm going through a bad moment in my life, I listen to that book, that audio book, because it inspires you. Because when you're doing something in life, not everybody's going to see the picture. Sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes it's shorter. But the inspiration of never quitting and the trials and tribulations to doing it, and the people that say you can't do this or you can't do that, when you believe and you believe you can be great, nobody can stop you.
Yeah, very, very much so. That's very true. It's about having that belief. I mean, so many of the conversations that we've had with various people, as you were speaking, I was thinking of Clive Davis, when we spoke to him, he spoke about that very fact that when he took over Columbia Records in the 60s, nobody believed in his vision for the kinds of artists that he was seeing, these new acts like Santana and Janis Joplin and so forth. They thought he was crazy. They thought, this is all going to go into the toilet. They didn't see the vision at all. And he talks about having to fight that.
Yeah.
It's a consciousness, and it was a corporate culture that he was fighting, and it's
single-mindedness.
And even though you're the president of the company, it's still, and I know Jimmy Iovine, spoke about that, he spoke about it in terms of using fear and, being afraid as a tailwind, not as a barrier, because it can be a strong barrier that can stop.
Yep.
And, you talked about that before in our conversation earlier when you said, things can become very corporate, very vanilla, very, formulaic. Yep. And it's so important. And the greatest stuff comes from people who see it a different way, whether it's, a Clive Davis or a Berry Gordy or a Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, I remember, it's funny. I remember being at Jimmy's house and this is for Apple, who created the iTunes.
Right.
And he was like, and people don't even understand, like, he was the first person to believe in the iTunes. All the other labels didn't care. They were scared. They was like, what is this?
Right.
And it was funny. There was one of his colleagues I worked with over at Olay. He was the the last people to actually give Steve Jobs his last collection of music, start iTunes.
Oh, wow.
And so when I remember, being at Jimmy's house, he's like, hey, let me get Steve on the phone. he's only saying his voice. Let me get Steve. Let me tell you about his iTunes, because iTunes was that way that labels could then do the downloads to take that narrative and say, hey, we have this many single downloads. Now play my record at radio.
Yeah, they couldn't figure it out on their own. And here comes a guy that didn't have anything to do with the music business and completely turned it upside down with iTunes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why this is what Spotify is now, right? Spotify is like, okay, how much audience do you have? How many streams do you have? What is this? Now I can take this. Now I can go to radio and be like, hey, guess what? I have this amount of audience with you. Play my record. That's what it is.
Right. And you can book tours off of that, seeing what regions and what areas of the world that you're coming out of. I mean, so I look at that Spotify as like a continuation, like iTunes 2.0,
Basically. It's exactly what it is. It's like Radio Street Team is the way, like,
right.
Yeah, but on steroids.
Basically.
Exactly.
With a little bit of twist in it. Well, they cleaned it up, but it was a little bit of fraudulent twist in between it, because everybody, with every new technology, you get all the scammers come out, right?
Trying to game the system, of course.
Gaming it. Yeah, exactly. Marcus, so much has been discussed about careers, and your career, I think, certainly is an illustration of commitment, of vision, and most of all of belief in yourself. And I guess I'm just curious, from your perspective, what advice can you offer artists today who are committed to building careers for themselves in today's music business?
The advice I would give them is, don't quit. Don't quit. Don't quit. Because if you really want this, it doesn't matter what it takes. Don't quit. And make sure that you bring the right people, making sure you have the right people around. Don't look at the name. Don't look at just because somebody worked at this company, they work with that people. Really learn the human, because not everybody has the right intentions. And do your research. Educate yourself. Because if you don't educate yourself, like I said, like, you can't start a business if you don't educate yourself. Yeah, you create the music, but you want to know, you need to understand what it is. You need to understand some of the aspects so you can protect yourself. And to do it, just believe. Just believe. And when somebody says something's not going to work, or they don't, you know what? You take the opinion. Yes, you take the opinion. You take a professional opinion. but you still have to believe because you got to be a leader. You know, you have to be a leader. Marilyn Manson created music. All these people created music. Do you think they got Marilyn Manson? Do you think they got Eminem? Do you think everybody got everything out of the gate? No. That's how they became superstars because people did not believe. They didn't think it was going to work.
Yeah, Dr. Dre talks about that with Eminem. He said, you saw the documentary, The Defiant Ones? Yeah, he talks about that in there. He said, everybody in my camp told me, stay away from this. Do not produce this new Eminem, whatever it is that Jimmy wants. Do not do it. He said, everybody, and yet, you know, he didn't listen. He believed. And, you know, I mean, you saw that, like, the first thing they came up with was, you know, My Name Is.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, but that's right to your point.
I mean, they said that about, I mean, if you look at it back in the day with Aaliyah.
Yeah.
With One in a Million.
Yeah.
Reddy was like, take these crickets out. What are these crickets? And they kept playing it over and over again. And then you know what? What happened? One in a Million became massive.
Blew up, yeah.
Right? The same thing with Pony. The same thing with Are You That Somebody? They was like, what is this? Oh my God, this is the worst thing I ever heard. And what happened? It's timing. Same thing with Sexy Back.
Yeah.
People don't know that. Same thing with Justin Sexy Back. They were like, oh my radio, what is this?
Yeah, I think that was the beginning of Timbaland's just reign. I mean, when that came out, that was so out of left field
and so unique
so unique, and that gets back to my whole theme with this show, with this particular interview with you, is that artists like Timbaland and Missy Elliott, which again, all, you know, One Republic, such futuristic mindsets, and I think that kind of rubbed off on you and why you took so many chances in your career and trying to push people like, no, this will work, you know.
I believe you can't fail. I believe there's no way in the world to fail in life. Like we're giving, like I said earlier, like we're not going to the moon. I don't know how to make a rocket, but I have enough common sense and vision, and there's enough opportunities out here. The music business it's like, as I tell artists, look at the music look at yourself as the soundtrack to the brand. And if you look at yourself as the soundtrack to the brand, then you're going to look at music in a whole totally different way. Absolutely.
Really quickly, Marcus, what are the best ways for people to get in touch with you and your new venture at Spence Force Entertainment? How does somebody reach out to you?
You know what? I'm actually going to be launching this weekend, so they'll be able to go to the website, which is to be SpenceForceENT.com, and that's SpenceForceENT.com. Also, you know, there'll be a sign up for that. I'll be uploading courses and one-on-ones and marketing opportunities to reach out to me. So there will be some contact information on that as well. Other than that, you know, I can always give my email, but I don't know if everybody, I don't want to get bombarded with so many emails, so it might be the best to go to the website, or I have my LinkedIn, and I'm always easy to respond on LinkedIn as well.
Beautiful. Marcus, we want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this. We are so grateful to you. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
What a great conversation.
Yeah.
It's so great to speak to somebody who has this kind of depth of experience. You know, I mean, so many wonderful points on this interview, Eric. You know, I love the point that he made about, you know, becoming an early adopter of technology.
Right.
Being especially today.
Yeah.
Especially today, where we are in an era where so many new and innovative ideas for independent artists, services, technologies, things that will come to you where you don't even have to leave your home, in terms of music, recording, mastering, getting it out there, are important. This is why, you know, and I'm always encouraging my students to read about this stuff, learn about what's going on, become aware. And that has never been easier than today. You know, back in the day when you had to buy a $400 subscription to Billboard, otherwise you were out of the loop.
Right.
We don't live in that world. It will all come to you, but you have to put the time in to learn. And I thought that was a very, very interesting point that Marcus made.
Yeah, I also thought the idea, and this is a big subject we've been talking about a lot here, and it's everywhere, of course, AI and machine learning in music. You know, Marcus acknowledged the advantages and risks of AI, emphasizing the importance of human direction and in leveraging these tools for engagement strategies. And I guess, you know, the whole idea there is AI can be really a great tool if you know how to use it in the right ways, And I think that's what he was trying to get across on here about how to use that to help leverage your, outreach and what you're doing, creating content, different things of that nature. And so I thought that was a very interesting subject.
Absolutely. And, especially today when you look at so many of the technological changes, AI, which we haven't even begun to see its full impact. This is all about, I think, and what he said is, essentially don't fear it.
Right.
Have a solid foundation for yourself. Know who you are.
Right.
Use things and the tools as exactly that, as tools to help your career.
Right.
That's what it's about, knowing who you are and using those tools to build a solid foundation. This is absolutely crucial for, I think, pursuing any kind of creative endeavor, regardless of the technological changes, like he was saying about AI or anything else in that. But you need to know what those things are, because it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Right.
It's not a, TikTok is for everyone. No,
Exactly.
it's not.
Right.
You need to know who you are, and you need to know how to use the tools that are going to help your career in the best sense.
Hey, Insiders, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We really appreciate it. To get show notes, links, and everything that was mentioned during this interview, head on over to our official website at MUBUTV.com/podcast/show notes. If you're enjoying the content and what we're doing here on the show, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts from. And don't forget to rate and review our show at iTunes. 5-star reviews are always welcome and help to ensure that our podcast stands out on the top-rated and new and noteworthy charts on iTunes and our space. You can also find us at social media at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter X, all ending with the handle MUBUTV, which is spelled MUBUTV. Don't forget to catch our flagship show, the MUBUTV Music Business Insider video series, airing every week on YouTube at youtube.com/MUBUTV. This show was produced and created by Rich Ezra and Eric Knight. Theme music by Disciples of Babylon, and be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast.